Good morning, guys. Happy to see a few faces in the room. It's honor and privilege to stand in front of you today. However, on the other hand, it's quite obligation that make me think the man, you better do quite good job. Let's see how well I do here. So my name is Kamil Czopek. I work for Mobica, and this talk is going to be about augmented reality. So I'm going to stick to quite good old principle, tell them what, why, and how. The what is going to be about some basic terminology, such stuff, because this is sessions for beginners. We need to start from ground zero. And why is more about motivation. Probably we already have answered this question to ourselves, why we're here, because we're kind of interested in augmented reality, but maybe I will manage to add a few more sentences that would emphasize that, yeah, this is good direction to follow. And the how part is going to be about the sample application I'm going to show you. And I think I did identify like 8 pillars, the basic stuff we need to learn to do, start playing with augmented reality. And after that, I do have 2 demos. And honestly, for these demos, I didn't have to utilize more than I'm going to show you on these 8 points. And I think the effects are quite nice. I'm going to finish this stuff with a talk that ARKit from Apple is not everything we have. I'm going to mention 2 more frameworks we can use for AR. And one is commercial, and the second one is all LGPL license. And we'll finish with question and answers, hopefully answers questions. So let's start with finding a bit of a theory. The augmented reality we're going to talk about today is what we can preview, the reality we can preview with our either iPhone or iPad. And we talk in iOS, so I don't say smartphone and tablet. We're not going to discuss things like capturing some image with camera, transferring, doing whatever kinds of transformation and displaying with the projector. We're only going to stick with the way we preview with our iOS device, and we add some external content on that. And example, IKEA catalog and Pokemon Go. Pokemon Go always is shown on presentation everywhere for developers, for marketers, and this one is taken from Apple presentation. I couldn't resist, I also took it. There is also, in this kind of same family, there is another technology called VR, which is totally immersive. You totally jump into this virtual world, and you just get cut off. Of course, there is lots of definitions. There are terms of mixed realities. There is term augmented virtuality, which is also a virtual world where you have a chance to really add some augmentation. So you influence with different factors like some sensors, or you correct me if I'm wrong. This could be like we jump into a virtual world and we track our mouth and our character would speak like that. So I believe this would be something like that. When asking Tim Cook, he would prefer augmented reality over VR because this is the chance that we can extend our abilities to exist in everyday work and do some extra stuff. And we're still in reality, and we have more superpowers while virtual reality is cutting you off. And when talking about market, it seems like there are some reasons why AR might be a few times bigger than VR. One of these reasons is the fact that VR is more like kind of perceived kind of replacement of standalone home entertainment, which is like TV, video games, something that you need some extensive power, at least right now, not something that you can carry every day, and you wear this helmet in the middle of the street. You're probably going to do it at home, while AR is like extension or addition to your mobile phone. And if you take a look at the sales of the smartphones versus other stuff like TV sets, video consoles, these numbers are a few times bigger. And one more kind of, let's say, motivating slide is the estimation about the value of market, even for B2C market. It should be, sales should be higher than what we have in this year in all video games industry. And the B2B segment is almost that big as well. Okay, so let's say we want to start with app. This is one more recap from Apple. We should do some we should be able to track our environment, understand what we have, where we have planes, where we have targets. And then there is this part for rendering, or putting our own images. For that, we need some tools. These tools are starting with some frameworks for AR. We need to be able to generate our content somehow. We need to create some assets that we're going to leave or buy them, obtain them somehow. And I couldn't resist on putting this, do some marketing research work. And I'm not going to elaborate because I know that developers sometimes perceive marketing as some evil stuff, sometimes. And I would like to just indicate that I'm proposing that we should take this research part from marketing when we think about launching our augmented reality app, because I assume not everyone of us is going to be given a chance to really work only in industries where we do AR, pure AR, or addition of AR to some already existing applications. Sometimes we think about creating something on our own. And I think, and I cannot unfortunately tell you that from perspective for someone who sold 10 million apps and made even more million in revenue, but let's say from perspective of someone who played some marketing games at studies, and this was #1 lesson: always pay top dollar for marketing data. Doing some research could help you. And the framework we're going to discuss is zooming into our tools. We're going to discuss ARKit, Wikitude, and AR Toolkit. And zooming into our models, we can of course use services like TurboSquid. If we want to hire some freelancers, we can use many of such web pages. I do have some good experience with Fiverr. And we can take a look at our neighborhood's backyard and use, for instance, Google Blocks, which is dedicated for VR, but they have cool models. I'm going to show you one of these models, what I have done with that. And I adapted it for my kind of shooter game. And of course, even if we don't create assets ourselves, things like Blender might be useful for converting between formats, just to get into DAE Collada, for instance. And back to this research, things like App Annie and Sensor Tower make top dollar from selling data to big companies, but they also have these free slices for us. We can preview what's really hot on the market right now. And sometimes you can even realize, I didn't know that such app even existed. So we can sometimes find something cool, play with that, and see what is the reason why it's converting so well. While Sensor Tower could be useful for ASO, App Store optimization, I didn't have to do much work to optimize some very old application. I just put some buzzwords, and actually the results are almost so good as many other applications that someone put more effort, but I used this tool, and this is quite helpful. Okay, so now it's time for this sample application, and we're going to cover a few basic stuff. So for this, playing with ARKit, we of course need at least Xcode 9 and device with A9 chip and iOS 11. And when we create a new project, this is of course basic, you all know that. We create this augmented reality app, and we need to select what technology for rendering we want to use. I did use SceneKit, and out of the box we get something like that. This is called ship, not plane, because plane is a fancy word reserved for surfaces. Maybe that's the reason why they call it ship. It's pretty much the same like when you create a new project for SceneKit, but the main difference you can spot is you do see AR scene view as your main view. And just a formality, this is how the view.load method looks like. The rest doesn't do actually anything. So when you launch this project, this is how it looks like. Yeah, you can just see how it looks. It's quite cool, but it doesn't do anything. So what I would like to do is to cover the following. Display text, as Hello World would say. This is going to be hello mobilization. show how to display some geometry nodes, how to detect planes, which are surfaces, and enable lighting, perform a heat test, which is when you tap on a screen, you want to find out if this extension of your tap would have hit any node existing on a scene. And how to apply physics, which is the collisions between objects, which is things like whether or not these are affected by gravity, and how to add particle system effects. This is actually not something strictly AR, of course, but this is the part of SceneKit, and how to apply force to objects. So after this sample app, we are able to actually, from the real beginning, we can see the planes is being detected, covered with some node, and we can tap the three buttons. One of them is going to display this hello mobilization text. It's the left bottom corner. Hello mobilization, yeah. The other button is going to display the cylinder. And the light is already enabled, otherwise it would look a bit different. Of course, you can also add your custom light, like the spotlight, and this, when you tap on a plane, there are even a few more geometries being added because there's physics applied. If they land on a plane, they stay there, otherwise they can roll and then they can fall, and this start is not very fortunate. And so I did a replay. One more button is applying particle system as applying force to this object. So how do we do it? Beg your pardon, but for each of these 8 items, I decided to put them into one code snippet. I am not going to show any live coding, risk any live coding here. I just took some screenshots. So with this, just to add this scene button, you need to create, I should have worn my glasses, actually. Yeah, you need to add the scene text, and this is the type of geometry, and it inherits from scene geometry. And there are things like material, you color it into green, and then I do have this helper method for capturing ship position, and I place this new node according to this ship position, and then I just add this node. For geometry, the cylinder is pretty much the same, but I do use the CN cylinder geometry, and the only difference here is that I do apply some physics body type, which is dynamic, which is going to cause that gravity is going to affect that. So if I don't want to fall, I do set explicitly one more property is affected by gravity. For detecting planes, it's happening from the real beginning. There are actually 2 parts. The one is setting the delegate as scene view to self, and the other part is handling the delegate methods. But in this delegate, there are a few more things happening. This shows statistics. It displays how many FPS we get. Auto-enable default lighting, is set to true. Debug options, one show feature points is going to cause we will see some points on the ground, and the other one shows world origin, which is X, Y, and Z axis. And we also here set ourselves as physics world contact delegate, and this is for handling collision between nodes. I'm going to get to that. Taking advantage of doing the view did load, I also will just mention view will appear. Here we have the thing called configuration, and here I think this is only property you can set. Plane detection is horizontal, which probably suggests that there's going to be more in future, and you run this session with this configuration. So handling plane detection is actually implementing methods or 2 methods, or how much you wish, actually. We do get information that some node has been detected and what anchor is that, and we just check what type that is. And we can actually do what we want. On some presentations from Apple, they do some discrete discrete mark on the land. In some demos I've seen, they put zombie footprints or whatever, things like that. I'm doing this green grid here. Yeah, that's pretty much it. You can do whatever you want with this. There is a geometry type called SCN plane, and you can use it. So the hit test. The hit test, again, one huge code snippet. I added it in a storyboard, and I just handle here this tap gesture. So the beginning is as like recognizing the regular tap location on a view. So you get this touch location, but you need to get this hit test result with this function. And once you have it, you can do something. In here, we added some boxes. These boxes are, again, the geometry types, almost the same like cylinders, but the geometry type is box. And one thing here that is different, and maybe deserves an explanation, is category bit mask and contact test bit mask. Here, this is enum type that we tell what actually kind of object we are, and we say what type of object contact with we are interested in handling. So it doesn't mean that if we didn't specify them, the physics in Syncit wouldn't work and they wouldn't collide, but it means that we explicitly want to handle this stuff. Here we apply physics. This was this one button, and we actually also add the particle system. Particle system is something that we take from the Syncit. You can just create file new and add this particular system. You have quite a few to choose. And this is fire. Oh, sorry, here, yeah. Here, this is still a physics contact delegate. So I just pick up which node is the box, and then I color it into some color. This is blue. And last thing with this such kind of slide is applying force, finally. So applying force, you pick up the ship and this particular system. And there is, if you take a look how it looks out of the box, there are some subnodes. So within this ship, you can find yet another node with name emitter, and you can add particular system. There is apply force method. There is also a version of apply at, which is yet another vector. And you say what point you want to apply this force at. Otherwise, if you don't specify it, it's going to apply it to the center of the mass of this object. And there is one property not mentioned yet. It's damping. It says how strong the friction is going to be. So if you want to have smooth linear velocity, you set it to 0. The default value I checked is almost 0. It's 0.1. Okay, so I say that this few basic stuff, if you have it, you can really create something that looks nice. And I created, I'm going to show you 2 demos, which I think look quite nice. One is created entirely from scratch. The second one is more like adapted, but I will get to that. For this demo, I took some stuff from already mentioned Google Docs. And I did use some sound effect. I just play them when time for that is. I don't know if and I call it Monster Hunt. These bullets you see, these are not actually the animation that has been added flatly on the screen, but these are also the nodes of the spherical shape, and there's a particle system added to them, and there's some just force applied to them. And once they hit the node, I just play the sound, I change the color, and everything else is done by Syncit for free. So when sometimes you can shoot this monster strong and he's going to fall aside. Okay, I don't know how to. I don't know if this sound is very pleasant for you or not. Just to watch the reaction. Finally, something is happening, so maybe I will keep it just for a few more seconds. Maybe 15 more seconds. I'll take a sip of water. And you literally, you don't need much more. Maybe just this cross here is the label. What you see on the top is also the labels. There are two labels with Unicode. You can actually use this the heart sign and this explosion sign. Okay, and the second demo is actually I had like two other candidates, but I wanted to show something better, but I didn't have that much time. I asked myself two questions. Could I find some cool project that already exists in a SceneKit and apply it a little bit so that it works in ARKit? And this is Mr. Pig. Mr. Pig is actually one of the reincarnations of arcade game named Frogger. Not a long time ago, we could see the big event about this Crossy Road that Apple showed. And guys from Ray Vanderlee, actually, if you don't know, I don't know what your opinion is, but I think this book is pretty cool. And they are updating it a few times in a row. It's about SceneKit. I took this code from these guys, and I saw how it's going to look. I have done just a few adaptations and see what the effect is. It's not that much about ARKit. ARKit, like one of the guys from Apple said, it just works. This is cool about it. So you have the pig that wants to cross the road. You have buses. However, this stuff did learn me a few things. There are a few considerations. With SceneKit, you add the camera as one of the nodes. So you can jump between these cameras. You can zoom in, zoom out, do such things. Here, you need to be aware that the size of your model is going to actually be affecting your actual world you're in. So you need to play with the size of the model. Another thing is the fact that you need to consider how you move your character. You can be in the middle of the action. You can be anywhere, actually. And if you want to be intuitive, and you can hold actually your device from anywhere. So if you want this to be intuitive, you need to play some additional work to really make it some mathematical calculations, actually. But generally, it's pretty much done by SceneKit. Well, yet another thing is that you also need to be aware of how big your world around you is going to be. So maybe preferably you should pick the plane that's going to be big enough, but not bigger, because it can really cover your horizon. So, and that's actually also one of the reasons why I decided to show you these movies in portrait mode, because in landscape I also have a few, but you cannot see the world actually besides that. Okay, so the other things I could show you are very simple. So I rather not bother, and I will mention just two more frameworks. One is Wikitude. Wikitude I had a chance to play with in the beginning of this year. It works a bit differently than ARKit. I just had said that cool about ARKit is that it just works and you don't need tracking markers. Here you need tracking markers, but you have some good reasons for that. For example, I think this is good for solutions when you work on your own product and you have full control over that, like you produce some toys for kids or you issued magazine and you really care about this set of data that's describing this object instantly. And here they provide a set of tools for importing images. Is very simple. You just upload images there, but they also allow you to teach and recognize. So this is kind of stuff a bit like machine learning bits. Well, a little bit. And they allow you to produce these targets, set of recognizable targets, and you can download them, or you can use in-cloud recognition. You can also create. Really, 5 minutes. Okay. Okay. You can really use your own XML descriptors, so you don't need to, for instance, do some matching on your own. Like you recognize this identifier, and you need to sync. You need to have some backend infrastructure to really sync the data. What that really is, they really can push lots of data about the model that's being recognized. And I think it's worth checking. They have APIs for iOS in native and in JavaScript. And in JavaScript, this stuff is richer. It also supports content creation, whereas the last time I checked, the native API SDK mainly was focused about target recognition. Oh, really? Okay. So this is just, I cannot show you because I work on it on a different project and I cannot show you any code from that. But this is what they show out of the box, that you just place it over any picture recognizable target, and it can just display something. You can manipulate it somehow. But this, from my perspective, unfortunately, is JavaScript, and you need to play a little bit with index, with HTML, with CSS, things like that. The last thing, actually, I want to mention, I might have made it in these 5 minutes, actually, is AR Toolkit. This is the cheap alternative if you want to do some prototype and just check how something would work, show to a client with no big investment. Maybe, but it also has a matter of legal issues, but I'm not an expert on that field. So it also gives you some tools, but these are mainly scripts, and if you wanted to have the really proper tools, you probably need lots of additional work. This is from version 5, and this summer they introduced version 6, was emailed about that. And yeah, and simple, pretty much simple, similar target-based recognition app is this gentleman is being recognized. There is yet another gentleman reacts in a funny way. So it's like doing your QR code with whatever image you please. It's very simple, just running one script, and then it generates you this recognizable target. Then you dump it to your project. But however, content, how you handle when it's being recognized, it's up to you. I don't think there's that much support for content generation. Fortunately or unfortunately, that would be all. The last time I checked, I was very late. So this time I probably hurried too much. So we got to the section called questions and answers, which I called questions, comments, complaints, concerns, crosswords. And I apologize, I was stuck to this console all the time, but I don't have a way to switch the slides, so I have to be close. So I don't know, in case there are any questions and I can answer, I will try to do it.
I have a question. I know that you can integrate already implemented projects in other platforms like Unity in ARKit.
Yes.
Have you tried something like that? Does this really work, and what's the quality of it?
Yeah, I haven't tried it, unfortunately. Yeah, it's a very good question. And also, yeah, the content generation for Unity should be super cool. I'm going to do that and try it. Maybe I'll be given next chance to do some materials or presentation. I'll be happy to follow this one, as well as maybe Unity will be first pick versus, because I also don't have experience with Metal, and you can use Unreal. Probably there's a few more to come. And there's also something I haven't mentioned, actually. You can do great combinations with yet another framework, but machine learning framework is, I think, something that goes hand in hand with AR, because you can really dump your, this probably deserves yet another presentation, but you can dump this machine learning model, and using this AR, you instantly capturing image, and you can recognize many stuff, as well as doing something with location, and maybe a few other frameworks. So combinations of AR also is something I haven't covered, but I also haven't mentioned. I'm not going to cover that, I forgot.
Okay, thank you.
And I questioned about performance. Did you reach some limit that the phone started to lag? And the second question about some anti-aliasing and smoothing the edges.
Yeah, I haven't tried anti-aliasing. And about the first thing, I think the performance is quite good. Unfortunately, the movie you've seen about the peak was a bit laggy. But I can promise you, I have tons of these movies. Well, I'm not the best in recording and watching people watching me next to kindergarten and things like that. But I did record it on iPhone 6s Plus. And the performance was good as far as I launched small demo, but you don't have to load everything at once. I can guarantee you that this big world was efficient even on this lowest supported device right now. And I think it should be way, way better with, you know, what they say, these dedicated devices like iPhone 8, iPhone 10. I think the performance should be really good with ARKit.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for the presentation. So what do you think about use cases for ARKit? I mean, there are many opinions that state that ARKit is cool on Twitter videos and when you play with it for like 20 seconds, 20 minutes, but then you run out of ideas. So what do you think about this?
Well, I think it's very immersive from my perspective, and I also showed it to a few people. But I wonder actually what's going to happen after 20 minutes. I think it's going to be more of the issue about VR. I think is going to be more exhausting. And AR, like mentioned, should be kind of snap activity. It's like works more in mobile context. So in mobile context, you do more of a snap decisions. I think there is going to be tons of use cases for that, even for some kind of, let's say, I don't want to offend anyone, but let's say boring data application that just display tables, etc. You can find some better way for showing that, visualize this data. This can enhance activities, many activities like you don't know how to mantle the chair from IKEA, and you get this tutorial manual that shows you what to do step by step, how to play with this toy, what to do. Yeah, this entertainment for kids should be the big sector. Well, even if you issue magazine and you have it printed copy, for instance, you can record interview with someone like at Forbes, but you can also extend these possibilities. You just use the phone and you have this recorded version. Very simple. You can do it even with this simple free framework that you can recognize this image, this target, and you have something being played. And the pure entertainment. This one I haven't tested myself to play with that for many minutes or many hours. Cannot tell if it's really exhausting or something you want to throw into garbage. But many people are, this is the big rumor, AR is a known term for a few decades now. But in fact, just right now, these big companies are really making it so feasible, so easy, and I think there are big investment being made for that. So I think these are being backed up by some research as well. I believe this is going to work, and I believe these use cases are valid. Don't know if I managed to answer the question. This is just my opinion, but I also think that I'm trying to read from what many people that I consider to be smart say. If they say they want to put lots of money, this could be bubble, but could also be the real thing. And the investment is not very high, it's not steep. It works, and it's easy to really adapt.
Okay, thank you.
Hi. I wanted to point out that the AR Toolkit is fully open source, so I don't know what the legal issues you were talking about, and also the Unity plugin is pretty straightforward to use. iOS and Android plugins are not that easy to use, but the Unity one is essentially as easy as Wikitude or easier. Now my question, have you actually tried Buforia? Because I was missing it in the presentation.
Sorry? What?
Have you tried Buforia?
No.
It's actually the paid, most used ARKit around. It's been around for a long time.
Really? What is the name again?
Buforia.
Yeah. Okay, I understand the name now. Sorry. I didn't miss the name. Yes, I am aware of that, but I didn't use it, no. And there was one company which was maybe even, I don't know where they would be if Apple didn't buy them before they introduced their AirKid. There was a few companies like that, and one of them was bought by Apple before they introduced AirKid. And actually, by the way, you might have answer to your questions about Unity from that gentleman.
Have you tried to combine ARKit with real physical location, for example, based off latitude and longitude? Like you create an object, you relaunch the application, and the object is in the same location.
Not enough. More like I scanned some what some people published about this stuff, but I haven't done it yet. It's in a schedule. Yeah, I'm going to continue with AR. Now I'm kind of very interested in that.
But do you think it's possible?
The location, there's, there is, if I understand correctly, there are some use cases for instance, you mean tagging places, what's where? Yeah, it is.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Just one question, because when you look at the phone, you generally have the picture which is set parameters. For example, do you think it's possible to for the ARKit to recognize the physical condition around you? For example, the light level, and adjust what you see on the screen, because when it's dark and you see something which is very bright, you don't get the context around you easily.
Yeah, so this auto-enabled lighting, I don't remember exactly how it behaved, and you're actually making a good point. I think you might, if it doesn't work out of the box, you might apply some tricks to trick that and to modify the colors yourself. I am not sure if there is any automation for that, or you have to be smart and try to, I don't know, maybe track the exact time you're in, or use some other sensors maybe for that. Don't have strong opinion of that.
Okay, so first of all, thank you for presentation.
Thank you so much.